Welcome to The Conscious Cut. I'm your host, Hoiki Liu. This podcast is all about rethinking sustainability across fashion, lifestyle, and everyday practices. Through conversations with entrepreneurs, policymakers, educators, and changemakers in Hong Kong and beyond, we'll explore real solutions, from industry-wide policies to the small habits we can all adopt. Let's cut through the noise and create meaningful change together. Welcome to The Conscious Cut. Today is the last day of Earth Month, and I just want to remind all my audience that just because it's the last day of Earth Month, we don't have to stop practicing our sustainable practices and our habits. So we're in this beautiful space today with Joyce to help remind our audience that, it's really like wellness, like self-care. We don't stop practicing it just because it's not the month of recognition or celebration. So we're in your beautiful space today because Joyce from Shop Stone Star is an intuitive energy practitioner at the Upper House Hong Kong Wellness Residence. And you use obviously crystals, tarot cards, and universal readings to help us understand, I guess, where we stand as the stars are moving around us. So let's explore that a little bit more today. But before we go on and talk about crystals and tarots and wellness, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Joyce?
So thank you for having me on. It's really important for us to just be in the moment, but to remember that Earth is our home. So whatever you're doing here with sustainability and everything, is really bringing awareness. So yay. But I am originally from the States, born and raised, and then I moved to Hong Kong about 17 years ago. Had other businesses, but in 2017 started re-exploring kind of like the crystals and this kind of ethereal realms with astrology and then readings and things like that. And so here I am.
So, okay. First I want to know, understanding that you're not from Hong Kong, why did you choose to, I guess you call Hong Kong your home now. Why did you choose Hong Kong?
Really factually, my husband is from here.
Okay.
So we met in the States and then I moved back. But the funny thing is that before I actually met him, I was in LA and I had moved to Ohio for work. And so I worked at Abercrombie corporate in merchandising, actually.
Right.
And before going to Ohio, because it's quite a big different, it's a big move from LA, I was like, okay, let me give it 2 years and then I'll move to Asia.
Okay. So you already had that thought.
Yes. So I already had this 2-3 year plan, and then it turns out I met my husband and everything worked out. So yeah.
Are your roots in Asia, your family?
So my parents are both Chinese.
Okay.
But then, so I guess that would be, I'm first generation, however you count it. So they went to school, university in the States, and then they're still there.
Okay. Well, with that, I want to understand a little bit more about your background and your upbringing. Before all of this, how did you know, what did you study in school? Like you said, you had other businesses before doing Stone Star. So I guess my questions would be, firstly, what drew you to the stars? When did you know you can read the messages or they have messages for you? When did that connection happen? And I guess, what were you doing before that? How did that switch turn on, I guess?
I think I grew up in Jersey. And we grew up on an acre and a half of land. So a lot of outdoors, things happening. My dad always had crystals in the home, but more of an aesthetic kind of thing. Not so much energetic. But I always, even in high school, have always been very connected. Or actually, this is before high school. High school is when the astrology started. But even before then, I would just remember being outside in the summer and the fireflies and the sky and the stars at night, and always being really connected to them. Even now when I walk home and it's night and you can see the stars, you can just look up and know that there's so much more out there. So I think it's been ever since I was little. But I did study astrology in high school.
Okay.
And so it's interesting how astrology works in patterns. And so every Saturn cycle is 30 years. So it really kicked back up after 30 years later again, and bringing us to almost now, a couple years ago, rekindling this kind of understanding or going deeper into these studies and things like that. So, yeah.
So we had a reading with you last week, and I think it helped me realize how there's a lot of math involved with what you do. Actually, it's a lot of seeing where things stand, their placements, the degrees, the distance. So it's not as up there and out in the air, a lot of people would think, because, well, obviously it is up there, it is in the air, but it's a lot of math involved. It's a lot of calculations.
Yes, but I mean, astrology it's a language in itself. It's a living language, and it's been used for years, right? Millennia. Like going back, if you want to talk about biblical times, they were also still using astrology,
right?
If you want to talk about like three wise men or the three stars that it relates to, things like that. But so it's been ongoing, and it's that living language, right? And so for me, I'm just translating. And yes, there's math, because there's angles and geometry and things like that. But a lot of it is still like, you can go to 10 different astrologers and they will give you 10 different perspectives and 10 different stories, because it's always through the lens of that particular individual. So it's always like, there are things that astrology can guide us to in understanding ourselves, right? That's really what the tool is for.
Yeah.
Because we're all affected by the cosmos and the universe, because everything is energy. So it's always going to be a play of that. Like, it's the interconnectedness. And so, yeah, it's more math than people think. But math is also a very universal language, right? You don't need... It's not like English and Chinese or, Hindu or whatever. It's like, really, everyone understands math.
Right.
And so the language of that is universal in itself. So I think, it's not that far-fetched.
Yeah, it's not that far-fetched at all, because, I mean, if you really, it's like you said, if the way I look at it, a lot of things, a lot of different religions, and even how Western astrology, the Chinese lunar calendar, all of it ties back to relations of where Earth is and where everything is placed around Earth, and how that affects the flow and vibrations.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's great to know. But okay, going back to, I guess you've always felt drawn to it, but what was the turning point that made you decide, okay, this is my focus now? Like, forget the other businesses that I've been doing, and this is really where I'm going to focus and strive and give my services to others.
I think I've always been led by intuition. So before this business, I actually had a photo booth business. And that was only because when I came back to Hong Kong, 2007 or something, or 8, there were none.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, there's a gap. Let me fill that gap. And so I was called, and I built it, and I grew the business. And then in 2017, like I said, I had a pivot. And I was like, oh, let me just start going back into this, like the crystals and the energy kind of realms.
Right.
And so it's like, it's always just been like a gut intuitive call. And that's kind of how I lead my life. It's just like, if it feels like it, okay, go.
Okay.
And it's just about answering it. Because a lot of us, everyone actually gets these calls, but it's whether or not we're in tune with it, or if the brain is driving. So that's how I see
I think a lot of people do forget, not forget, but they kind of set their intuition aside, because so many things, if you just run by the logics, like you can't predict the future. That's what I think they assume, but you can actually, by just your actions today, will predict what's going to happen to you tomorrow.
I think, it's really that call. If you answer it, it's always from your soul. Right? Rather than when we're programmed from the mind, and like society says you should do this, or your parents want you to do this. And it's always like the expectations of others.
Yeah.
And you're not actually doing what you were brought here to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just about tuning in and listening.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm bringing out how important all of this is because, like, you don't actually advertise. I mean, my audience might be like today, oh, this is a very different guest that I have today. You're not, although you used to work for Abercrombie and Finch, you're no longer in like perhaps the fashion industry any longer. You don't advertise yourself as a environmentalist or a sustainable guru or anything like that. But I have you here today because even though this is not your focus or where you're telling people you're striving in, you are actually striving in this area. And that's how I see it, because what you do and just your lifestyle, your daily habits is a very sustainable practice. It's a very sustainable way of living. And bringing that up is how I know you became vegetarian because your youngest daughter, who's your third daughter, right? Your third child, I remember you telling me she was born into veganism, basically. She refused to take any meat from day one.
Yeah.
And you just joined her, which is super thoughtful. And although the rest of your family, I believe, is still eating meat, right?
Yeah.
So how does something like that, because this is the kind of sustainable practices that I'm talking about, how do you guys practice it without affecting others and letting others affect you, I guess?
Others like the other children?
Yeah, other children or your husband. Because, I mean, you won't be the first family. I see a lot of families that, have some parts of their family will be vegetarians and some others won't be. But the way they end up eating, it's either quite separated, and sometimes I've even seen it actually like not work for certain families, but a lot of times, like in your family, like for example, it is working. So how does it work? How do you be mindful about that and respectful to everybody?
Well, for me, the way I raise the kids and, and my husband as well, everyone is a sovereign being. Everyone gets to make their choices. So they understand why I have chosen not to eat animal products. And like my eldest daughter, she's like, oh, but I just want to try to eat the meat because I love the meat. But she's like, but she also knows eventually she'll probably end up becoming vegetarian.
Okay.
Because she understands the implications and she understands from an energetic, but also from a physical standpoint, how a lot of people might have cognitive dissonance and things like that. So she's totally aware about that, but I let them choose. And that's really the most important thing, right? I'm not being authoritarian and saying everyone needs to eat no meat in the house, but I let them choose because everybody is allowed to have their own authority over themselves. So we do have like separate meals, but at the same time, I'm like, here, have some more veg, and then they will usually oblige. So yeah, it just works. It's that mutual respect amongst children, amongst parents, and really just being considerate in that way, not forcing your opinions onto anyone else.
And I mean, I'll assume that it's actually a pretty, like, there's no issue. It's a really easy dynamic in a household, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I think, like, life should be, that it's a kind of life practice or daily practice that people should just realize. Like, don't always let others and everything affect you. But at the same time, we are always being affected by everything. So how does one be mindful about it and still choose to practice what they need to practice?
I think it's just, it's a mindset, right? It's like knowing that this is my sphere and I'm going to share the information with you, why you should eat more. But ultimately, like I said, it comes back to respect.
Yes.
Right. And when you respect others, it's also a form of respecting yourself. A lot of people who cross other people's boundaries, it's because they didn't realize that, going back to like inner child wounds or whatever, their boundaries were crossed when they were younger. So yeah, it's like, it's not just like, what are you eating and things like that. It's like how are you living and how are you being, right? It's like mindfulness practices, like what you said.
Okay, great. So I know actually this wasn't going to be part of our topic, but you also source what, it's not just that you're you're a vegetarian, because there are vegans who can be vegans and still be totally unsustainable in the way they eat and the foods, it's, you can be vegan and you still can be eating junk food.
Yeah, of course.
All
Of course.
Yeah, I guess that's what the point I'm saying. So what are some tips that you can give our audience about mindful eating?
I think that where you are purchasing your food is really important. So for us, organics is really important, just because I'm very particular about what goes into my body, because the way you treat your physical body, it's what gets you around in life, and your health is your wealth, right? So we order our vegetables online every week. So we have like organic online delivery for our vegetables. And then where we buy our other like fruits and things like that, same thing. It's like we're very conscious of where we're getting everything. And of course, if Hong Kong had more farmers markets, I'd love that.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we do what we can, right? So it's like just being aware of where your dollars are going and what you're supporting, right? To make sure that is supporting either your community or giving back or the way they're doing their business. It's like, because our dollars matter. So that's really what I would say, like how we intentionally, unintentionally, like do this sustainability thing without labeling it so much as sustainability. Yeah.
That's what I think. I think if you're very mindful about your habits and your daily practices, actually you naturally live a very sustainable lifestyle, because that's just how it will flow through the energies. With saying how you with mindful purchasing now, I want to go back to the crystals because you have so much of it. Okay, so I mean, I know I thought a little bit too much from you, probably. Not that I'm complaining, because I really do feel like the energy being lifted when I'm in this type of space. But I want to understand, because there's so many places where I can get crystals from, Even actually nowadays, you go on Instagram and they're doing live sales, from different places across the world. But how do you source your crystals? Because, I mean, having seen quite a few different places where they sell crystals and being able to, for myself, like I feel that I'm able to feel certain vibrations and energies. What I feel here is very clean and very calm. But there are certain places where, you pick up a piece of crystal that it's supposed to be lifting or cleansing per se, but it just feels very noisy. It feels like there's a lot of things happening, a lot of energies going on. So how do you source your crystals? Because I guess you've told me you've gone on crystal trips, but I assume you can't always be there. I'd like to know about both. How do you do it when you're physically there, and how do you do it when you can't physically be there?
I think the most important thing about this sourcing part of this business is relationships. So in the very beginning, 2018, 2019, even 2020, up until COVID, I was sourcing crystals in person. So I was flying to the States, and there's a huge show it's in Tucson, and it goes for like a month. And there's like, I don't know, 80 different shows within the city. And so there's a variety of all the vendors, and this is the largest gem show in the world. And it always happens, January, February timeframe. But I literally go and I take my wagon and I am picking out the crystals one by one, and you have conversations with the vendors, right? A lot of them are family owned, which is what I love. And you really can see, because they've like hauled all their stuff over, and like you have conversations with them. And then a lot of it is very intuitive. Like, are they lying? Like, do you feel they're being shady or just trying to sell you stuff? Or are they really genuine about their practices, or how transparent are they? And of course, it still comes back to like, how do I feel in the conversation that makes me want to, again, continue purchasing from them? Because once you make the initial connection, then okay, I can message them and be like, hey, what do you have?
Right.
And that's really when the offline, right, comes in. So it's really important to initiate those conversations and those relationships first, where now I have them. So when I need something or I run out of something, I'm like, hey, what else is there? And things like that. It's a lot of trust as well, right? Because there is a lot of slave and child labor in Africa, right? In the Congo, even with like things where it's like our cell phones, all the components and things like that, right? So it's not something we can turn a blind eye on or not know. Like I was even like lapis. I think I told you briefly in a conversation we had, lapis, a lot of it is actually sourced or dug or mined by Taliban now.
Yeah.
So lapis is something that we don't stock often. We never have. But I'll get one or two pieces. But now it's like even more so bringing this into the awareness of consciousness of like, oh, is that ethically and morally even, not just sustainable or not, right? But are you ethically okay with it? That's really what it even comes down to. So I may have a lot, but a lot of them, at least I know where they're coming from. So I prefer that because it makes a difference to me. And hopefully, like I said, whether the client knows or not, at least for me, I'm running the business in a way that I feel most comfortable with.
Yeah. And that is really important, actually, knowing your sources. So, I mean, obviously, you've built your foundations, so you're able to have this freedom where you have already built the connections and the trust with your suppliers. But yeah, like you said, I mean, I know you've mentioned it to me about the lapis thing, but that's some of the things, because I know crystals can come from, everywhere. It does come from all over the world. So is there certain parts of the world that the crystals that you feel more drawn to?
There are so many. I don't think there's actually an answer to that. I'm like looking, I'm like, And it goes in waves, actually. So like maybe one part of like this time frame, I'll be drawn to Indian crystals, or another, there's like Brazilian, or for a while it was Namibia. I have always, however, still consistently been drawn to this one mine in the States called Elmwood. And that mine goes on and off. And there's another mine in Missouri. It's the most bizarre. But yeah, for some reason, now that you ask the question, it still comes back to the States for me.
Okay.
But yeah, but the world has such beautiful, beautiful minerals. I mean, Mother Earth, you really look at the wall and what's available or what she's created.
Yeah.
And it's so hard not to just, be
love
so
her
grateful.
And want to protect her.
Exactly. So yeah.
Okay. Now let's see. We did go through quite a few of the questions without me having to look at them, but staying with crystals and tarots and readings, I mean, I do want my audience to have an understanding of what services do you offer?
So I have the crystals. There's also crystal therapy and crystal readings. So if you come in and you're not sure what you want or what you're looking for, you just want to find something pretty, or you want to find something to support you in whatever energetic way, I can help do that. And then there are what I call soul sessions. And so soul sessions is really a conversation with your higher self. So like you had mentioned before, there's a lot of noise, right? Whether it's the crystal that has a lot of noise, but even ourselves, there's a lot of noise outside. There's a lot of distractions. There's just a lot of stuff that bombards us. So sometimes we cannot hear our soul or higher self very clearly. So I'm here to translate. So if you have any questions, or you just want to see what do I need to be reminded of, or sometimes clients come in and they would like to have some confirmation about decisions that they've pretty much already made, but just to see what pans out, they'll come in. And so it's a nice check-in point almost with yourself. Because like I said, I'm not fortune telling, I'm not doing psychic work. It's really just a conversation with yourself, really. So that's soul sessions. And then there's the astrology. And the astrology is very much like, Eastern, or like Batsy, where we need birthday, time, place. And it really shows how the cosmic energies and the neutrino fields and everything are like that are affecting you in this particular moment. So whatever's coming up for you is very personal, right? Because everybody comes in with a different soul path, with a different timing, and even twins, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Twins who have the same time, less a minute, still have different soul progression.
Yes.
So astrology kind of helps to show us like our purpose, what we need to look forward or try to achieve or elevate ourselves into, our gifts, our talents, even things like what we need to be more mindful of. Like if you have a Mars that's really active, maybe like you need to learn how to tone it down this lifetime,
Yes.
things like that, you know. So it's really nice because all of these tools is really just an understanding, a greater understanding for who you are at your core without all of that outside noise or the layers or the programs and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's me. I used to be like, oh, I don't want any readings. When we first met, I'm like, oh, I love your crystals. I don't want you to tell me anything. It makes me really nervous. But actually had the sessions, and I feel like having the crystals just kind of helped me see it and approach it in a different way. It's just lifting. Actually, everything that we've talked about and we've mentioned, a lot of you is like you said, you've never told me specifically anything, but you've reminded me of a lot of things, which I think it's very helpful. I think everybody who has a chance should check it out, especially with a place like Hong Kong, because we're such a fast-paced city here. Often you kind of forget your purpose. You're just running like a machine that's running, adding in oil and running and pushing and going. But obviously, especially when we're in a fast-paced city like this, we really need the time to kind of, come back to ourselves, take that time for self-care, for wellness. And like I said, it's when you take care of yourself, you start to realize you can take care of everything else around you too. Because first you need to be okay, and then you can make everything okay, right?
Yeah.
So for Hong Kong, for example, for yourself, for your family, how do you guys recharge in the city?
I think, like you said, it's so fast paced. Luckily, our home is like our sanctuary. So it's really important to have that space, physical space, that is sacred to you, and not allowing anything to interrupt or interfere with that. So even if it's like in the home, a corner in the home, where the kids can't come in. It's like, no, mom needs her alone time now. Shh. It's having boundaries, right? And it's also being non-absorbent of everything that's going around, because Hong Kong is so fast-paced. It is always on. It is automatic. A big thing though with Hong Kong being a city is like you have the greenery as well.
Yes.
Right? So it's grounding. So centering yourself is always very important, right? Because the eye of the storm is always the calmest. So coming back to center and finding your inner peace, however it works for you. And it could be, and it's different for everyone, right? But for us, it's like having a moment of just quiet in the morning, like morning rituals or routines, or sitting with the crystals. When I come here, I'm actually very grounded because it's nice to be surrounded by everything here. But it's, again, just intentionally thinking about what keeps me at peace and what keeps me centered most, and not having to join that rat race. So whether it's like going on for a hike or hugging a tree or buying yourself flowers even, right? That reconnection, I guess, with Mother Nature or Mother Earth, because it's Earth Month. And like I said, it's like she's our home. And she's always supporting us. I think that's really important too. She's always here for us. She's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So for us to like just interact with her more, because she's there for us.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like she's interacting with us more now. With with our 13th winter in April of 2025.
I'll take it though. I'll take it.
All right. Okay. So for, like, as we said, it's Earth Month. And I want to say, was it some kind of new year for astrology? Was it? Okay, yeah. I'm not wrong there. Okay.
So when it hits the spring solstice, right? Yeah. Aries season comes about. So just last couple weeks ago, March 21st was the cosmic new year. So the sun moves into Aries. So it's like, yeah, in that sense, a new year.
Okay, so in that sense, with Earth Month being the last day of Earth Month and the New Year coming, the New Year already being in, I guess it would be like the cosmic second month of the New Year.
Kinda,
Does it
yeah.
also go in 12 months?
It is 12 sun signs.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so with that, can you give us just a little bit about maybe for this coming year, how the energies are shifting, or maybe what practices we should consider that we can add into our daily habits, maybe not even daily habits, maybe like weekly or monthly rituals? Yeah,
I think the most important thing is grounding, right? And grounding doesn't mean you have to put your feet onto the grass and Mother Nature or whatever. It's like, it could be like buying yourself flowers or reconnection with earth energy. So if it's gardening, even if it's a balcony garden, or it's like I said, buying yourself flowers or like having plants in the home, things like that. That is one way. And then since it is like we're going through spring is about change, right?
right.
This whole year of 2025 is change. There is a lot of fire energy actually in this year. So you want to be less resistant or less hesitant to change. And when you get those gut feelings of movement and to go or to try or to take that leap of faith, you should go.
Okay.
It's really not being in a reckless way, but like really if you have a soul calling, because fire energy is about initiation. So Neptune has moved into Aries, and then at the end of May, Saturn will move into Aries. So we have a lot of this, again, newborn, new life, rebirth, rearrange, re-everything, So it's showing up in a major way in everybody's lives, because Neptune is a collective transgenerational planet. It takes 165 years to go around the sun, so it affects everyone and everything, and it's never happened in our lifetime before, so it makes it also even a more massive kind of shift in the energies. But it's really about bringing our dreams into reality, which we should be doing anyways, but even more so, like the dreams that you have that you haven't taken any action on. It's a lot of action energy. That's what fire is. So yeah, for everyone, it really should be like, if there's that burning desire or that like kind of niggle inside of you that you really just kind of feel like something is itching, you should take care of it. Like, and movement is really good this year, like sweating it out.
Yeah.
Right? And just getting out the stagnant energy. Because a lot of times earth energy can be resistant and can be stagnant or can be like status quo, but this is not the year for that. It's really about change and embracing change. Yeah.
And I feel like nature has kind of forcing that on us. When you mention that it's a fire year, like we literally started this year with multiple forest fires in the world.
All around.
In the US, in Canada.
Italy had some, Spain had some, everywhere
Europe,
basically.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then with the earthquakes that's just happening. So it is a lot of shifting and fires. It's very literal what you just
like
said.
Volcanoes too. It's very eruptive, can be disruptive energy.
Yes.
So again, coming back to your own center, right? That's why grounding is so important, and like staying present,
right?
So that you're not getting shaken up, literally, or just distracted even by the outside. Like, it exists and things like that, but it's really about staying centered and grounded, rooted in what you are here to do. I think that's a really good reminder.
So with that, what crystals now would help support that kind of energy to support us to thrive in new paths, I guess, maybe?
I think a really amazing stone is here, like the red families, right? So vanadinite is really beautiful. It's from Morocco, but it's like an action fire energy, because again, getting out of that stagnancy, right? Embracing change and really initiating. So vanadinite is really beautiful. If you wanted to take something that's anchoring or like just more stable, but in manifestation, pyrite is always really great. So pyrite is always like about money, yes, because it's fool's gold, but it's really also about remembering to shine.
Okay.
So a lot of solar plexus,
Right.
confidence, worth, knowing your worth, so that you have the courage to make that change or to embrace the change. And then grounding stones also would be like smoky quartz, which is also a really great ally. Smoky quartz, black tourmaline, all of these to help kind of stay centered and grounded, and also protection from like funny things out there.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. Okay, I think that is pretty good. But before we end and before we close, I want to see if you have any further practices, habits, rituals that you think that you can share with us, that you think, you know, we've been talking for a little bit before today, obviously. I mean, and I keep telling you, you're sustainable, Joyce. You live a really sustainable lifestyle. Since I've been telling you that so often, do you think there are certain aspects that you can now pull and be like, look, this is how I live, and this is actually a really sustainable habit that we have?
No. I really, because I've told you before, I don't label it as sustainable, you know, and I think sometimes it's nice not to have that label.
Yeah.
It's the lifestyle, right? Being in flow with and in resonance, not just with your own home, household, family, what goes in, what goes out, but then in your work and in your career, when you're in flow, you're not forcing anything, right? Because force takes a lot of energy when you're trying to power through or taking willpower to do things. But when you are in flow, to me, that's kind of like sustainability because it just moves. Right? So it's not necessarily a practice, although I guess it can be. It's like more of a mindset.
It's more of a mindset,
right?
and it is more of a conscious living. I think it's just being really conscious.
And where your energy is going, and not having to, like I said, power through. Because whenever you're powering through something, it's a lot of effort. And I prefer my life to be more of ease and effortlessness. Still getting things done, but I think being sustainable in this sense is like just being in flow with everything around you, whether it is the environment, with your colleagues, with your family, with your loved ones, you know?
I think one thing that I can point out, though, is with you, because you're so conscious, you won't just take what is being told to you as factual. You very much trust your gut, trust your intuition, and I think that's something that a lot of us, especially in city life, sometimes I feel like it gets drowned out. Gut feelings and intuitions get drowned out with everyone's opinions. So I feel like that's something that you've held on very truthful to what your beliefs are and what, you know, what's not necessarily what's right and what's wrong, but you have that mindset to question. Like, you know, for example, when we're talking about junk food, because, you know, we have kids, you have 3. So when obviously you can't help it. We live in Hong Kong, you go to a supermarket, you'll see all the snacks and all the junk, you know. These individually wrapped these individually wrapped pieces of food in small pieces of plastic that's being wrapped in a giant piece of plastic, and then you turn around to the ingredient list and all you see is like sugar.
The ease.
Yeah, I was going to say like sugar, water, sure, but then underneath is like ease and numbers, you know, and that's not natural, obviously. So the fact that I think a lot of us will just, you know, maybe we'll see it on a yogurt packaging. It'll say fat-free yogurt, or, you know, or fat-free Greek yogurt, and you'll be like, oh, Greek yogurt's healthy and this is fat-free. Let me go for that. But that's when we stopped questioning things and we just accept what's being told to us, right? Because like you've mentioned to me, you know, like, well, obviously if it's fat-free, then what are they putting in there in place of the fat to hold the yogurt together? Because yogurt is fats. Like it will just fall apart without the fats, right? So what's holding it together? You know, and it's digging a little bit deeper and asking those questions and not just being fed information and accepting it as it is. And that is being conscious.
Yeah, I mean, and part of it is the education too, right? Just number one, curiosity, right? It's like asking why, especially when you see lots of people running towards things. Usually I'll be like, let me walk the other way.
Yeah.
But I've always kind of been like that too, ever since little. It's just walking against the grain. And it's that inner kind of, yeah, is this really good for me? And as what I am taking in, again, to the body, or even like what we listen to or what we watch, things like that, is it supporting the life of my dreams? Is it supporting me to be a more expansive and better version of myself? And I even tell my kids, I'm like, if you're watching YouTube, are you learning something from it? Is it making you a better person? Because if it's not, you shouldn't be watching it. Right?
Because even on a platform like that, you have multiple choices of what you decide to watch.
And then it's like all just consumption without being constructive or creating yourself, you know? And so that's one of the things that I also tell the kids. Like, again, the junk food is one thing. When I'm not there to watch over or guide, these have ease in it, you know, they're still going to buy it, but at least they have that awareness, which is all I can do as a parent, right?
Yeah.
Just guide. But then again, consuming, it's not just what we put into our mouths, but what we watch, what we listen to, and even the environments that we're in, whether it's friends or not, right?
Yeah.
So I think all of this is very conscious living, which comes back to, I guess, in your definition of sustainability.
Yes. And also, I want to point out, you're actually wearing a sustainable garment today for my company and for my brand, Anthora. And this is a piece that you bought for me
years ago.
At least three. It was 3 Christmas fairs ago, because I actually did a pop-up that one year.
And when we met.
This is when we met. And that's when you started me buying all this multiple crystal journeys. And I'm so happy. I mean, obviously, everything that I've bought from you is still, you know, helping me thrive in my home and in my office. And I'm happy to see that you're still continuing to wear. And it looks just as fresh as day one.
It is. It does really well.
Thank you.
I love it.
All right. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.